Good evening, all. My name is Pat O'Brien. I'm a farmer from West Cork. I'm very sorry that I could not make it up to you this evening just to help you out. I'm speaking, I suppose, because we're living beside turbines. So, where you are now, we were 20 years ago. So, I just want to give some of our experiences to date. I wish to start off that 20 years ago, when they were talking about building wind turbines here, we did not object. We listened to the people who were putting it up. They were our neighbours, and we believed everything they said. So we're not against turbines. We're not against climate change. We love to see people getting on. But unfortunately, what has happened, or what we have seen since, tells us that wind turbines are not sustainable. Just to elaborate on that, to understand sustainability, there are three main parts to sustainability. There's environmental, so you probably will hear about the environment, how it will affect it, how fossil fuels affect the environment. You will also hear how turbines have an effect on nature. The second part is economic, which is self-explanatory. The third part, the main part for me, is social. Now, unfortunately, this is social sustainability is a part that is never mentioned by the government or by politicians because they do not care what happens to people. For sustainability to be effective, all three parts have to be equal and have to be treated as equal. So we'll take the third part, which is social sustainability. That means communities like ours, like yours, have to be taken into effect and have to be looked after very much for the whole project to work. So how are communities affected by the spread of turbines around the country? So in our case, when the turbines were first muted to be put up, there were 7 or 8 people objected. Again, we did not. We thought they would be great for everything. They would solve everything. 10 years later, when the locality again was put to the test and they wanted to expand this local wind farm, for every one that objected before they were ever put up, there were 20 locals objected when they had seen the effect, when they had lived with the effect, and when they had suffered with the effect, and when they could see how these turbines were affecting the locality and local people living there. And that speaks for itself. So just in the countryside, if it looks like a horse and neighs like a horse and kicks like a horse, it is a horse. So I hope the people who are trying to tell us that these turbines are great for our communities just stop and stop trying to fool the people, because that's all they're trying to do. About 5 or 6 years ago, the locality here, when we were trying to see how it affected us, we made 2 lists: how it was benefiting the community and how it was negatively affecting the community. So how do these turbines, how will they benefit your community? So they will say direct jobs. The only direct jobs is when they're putting them up in our community and in 3 other communities directly around us where there are turbines. There are no direct jobs. There is nobody in the community employed there. The indirect jobs, they're not in our community. So they do not benefit our community in any way or the other communities around us. The money they get, they do not get money. They're promised money, but they do not get money. But they have split the communities, unfortunately. The next topic that I'd like to move on to is again, it's obviously to do with the community. In our area, there were 41 houses within a 1 kilometre radius back 20 years ago. Since then, 4 of those houses are now idle. So when the people died and passed away, the new generation would not live next door to the turbines or near the turbines. And they were not prepared to invest or spend money in doing up the houses. So there was 41 houses, there's less 4, there's plus 1. So we envisage within maybe 30, 40 years, the number of people living here will probably be down to half. Is that pie in the sky? We just do the maths. Would any of you choose to live or build a house or invest money in your home next door to a wind turbine? Very, very few would, unfortunately. So what that means is your children and their children will choose not to live next to the turbines. So your community will slowly and surely die away over the years. It's an awful prospect. It's not what we're supposed to be about. The next thing I'd like to bring your attention to is, obviously people talk about the flicker. You can see that it's very visible. It's easy to understand it. When you stand beside them, the noise is very audible. So researchers who would have come to our place beside the turbines would say it's like being next door to the runway of an airport. That really affects you when the wind is blowing and howling, but it isn't actually 365 days of the year. For us, the worst part by a huge amount was the low frequency noise, which you cannot really measure, and it just tears your life apart. So your brain can't recognize this low frequency noise. It gets inside your head. It affects you at night time when you're lying down trying to sleep. So you go to sleep because you're exhausted, but you wake up with this pounding in your head because your brain is fighting against this low frequency noise, which it doesn't understand. And it's just this pressure inside in your head. So every night, every week, every month, you wake up with this pounding in your head. So did our children. So even though we're farmers, we built a new house in 2002, and 7-8 years ago we eventually gave up and we moved out of the house because of the effect that it was having in our health. We just had to move up. So we moved further away. We were 570 kilometers away from them, where our new house was, our home was. So we upped and off and left our home beside our farmyard, beside our place of work, and moved a kilometre further away. It did ease, but it is not gone. So that's the greatest effect that it has on us. So in anyone's business, surely you could not wish this on people. The house just beyond us, it did not affect them at the start, but 4 or 5 years on, the cumulative effect, they also experience tinnitus now, and they're also affected. They've put all their money into this. This is their retirement home, so they cannot afford to move. So this is reality. It's not reality for everybody. It's reality for us, and it's reality for the neighbours beside us. And the house closest to us is now vacant, and the house across the fields from us is now vacant. That's our reality. Just one word I'd like to put, there was a community 8 miles away from us where the turbines, there was supposed to be a turbine farm. There were maybe 10 farmers signed up. They didn't realize at the time the effects. When they became aware of the effects, even though they had signed up, they were able to show that they had signed up under duress. So one by one, they pulled out because when they realized how it would affect their neighbors, they just could not be part of it. So, and that did not go ahead. So anybody who would tell you to wait until the planning goes through and then start fighting it, they're not on your side. Do not let it get started. Do not let it get momentum. Just keep communities together and do not let somebody else come in to just pilfer out of your community. It's your community, it's not theirs. Do not let them break you up. And anybody who tries to do that is definitely no friend of your community. I wish you all the very best. Good evening.